Unfortunately, for those who clicked the video hoping to hear me talk about Kyrie, Zayne, Io Sky, and the rest of the faction, we are not talking about that kind of damage control. Today we are talking about the Philadelphia Flyers heading into today's game against the Buffalo Sabres, because yesterday's article published on The Athletic by Kevin Kurz, what I'm hearing about the Flyers, Sanheim impressing, Michkov's meetings, and Ristolainen's future. This article goes over some really interesting things regarding that second name on the title. Matvei Michkov, ladies and gentlemen. We had spoken earlier in the week about his getting scratched for 2 games in a row at the hands of John Tortorella. This was a pretty interesting move because a lot of people would go out there and say that, hey, Michkov has been good. Like, very, very good. He's at 13 points in 15 games played. He's on pace for 69 points this season, which would be a very nice amount. And ultimately, we had discussed Elliotte Friedman's reasoning as to why everything was going down the way it went down, and we had a pretty rational conversation about it. You know, Matvei Michkov had 4 games without a point spanning back to the end of October, but then ended up getting himself a pretty good streak of points after the scratches. He has gotten himself 4 points in his last 3 games, including an overtime winner, including a shootout winner. He's been very good. Matvei Michkov has been, and all at the ripe old age of 19. Now, the reason we're talking about Michkov from the article that Kevin Kurz writes about is because of the meetings that have been going on. Damage control, if we can call it that. And I'll leave a link in the description, of course, to the original Athletic piece if you wanted to go out there and read it yourself, but because the Athletic is behind a paywall, I'm also going to leave a link in the description to this article at NHLTradeTalk.com, published by Jim Parsons, because it goes out there and pretty much gives the scoop as to what's written about in the Athletic, except this website is not behind a paywall. The Flyers hold meetings to avoid Michkov getting frustrated with John Tortorella. The Flyers are holding weekly meetings with Michkov to ensure he stays aligned with head coach John Tortorella's in-the-moment decisions. The Philadelphia Flyers are taking steps to ensure their highly touted prospect and rookie Michkov maintains a strong relationship with John Tortorella, the head coach, whose in-the-moment coaching style can sometimes create a rift between the two. As reported by Kevin Kurz in The Athletic, the Flyers have implemented weekly meetings between Michkov, Tortorella, and team staffer Slava Kuznetsov in order to improve communication and ensure Michkov understands why Torts does what he does. Michkov has been incredible for the Flyers, but he is not perfect. Like any rookie prone to making mistakes, the situation is more complicated than Philadelphia, where Tortorella is not known for being incredibly patient, and a language barrier means Michkov doesn't always understand the messaging. And yeah, language barrier indeed. We had spoken about it the other day, just kind of Michkov's, I don't want to say attitude, that's the wrong implication. He's got a winning sort of mindset, and he's very competitive. The fact that he's willing to shut out one of the only guys on his team that can speak his language because that dude beat him in a game of ping pong just goes to show you Matvei Michkov's overall mentality when it comes to being a competitor and having that burning, unwavering, indomitable desire to win. So, what happens when you're not given that opportunity to win, when you're taken out of the lineup, when you're benched, when you're scratched, when you're whatever, and you can't really understand what the coach is saying? Quite literally, because he doesn't really speak the best English at this point in his career, which, you know, it's fine, he's 19, he's gonna learn, but what happens? Well, you kind of have to have a translator in there, clearing the air and making sure nothing gets Scarlett Johansson, Bill Murray lost in translation. Kurtz writes this: the 3 of them have met in each of the last 2 weeks, according to a team source, who added that the aim is to make sure that Michkov understands why certain things are happening in the game, as Tortorella is someone who coaches in the moment. And I think it's really enlightening that this sort of information is being put out there, because for John Tortorella, we've recognized over the past few years that his coaching style definitely isn't like the standard. He follows a very particular style, and he has his quirks, he has his decisions, his idiosyncrasies that make him unique, and what I think a lot of NHL athletes will say, the ones that have been coached by Tortorella, you'll see a lot of them giving big props over to him as a coach, as a people's guy, as somebody who stands up for his team. But you'll also see a lot of people talking about how fiery Torts is, how passionate he is, and how sometimes his decisions may not make the most sense in the moment, but you know he's doing them for a good reason. What more when the guy doesn't really understand English? So for Matvei Michkov, it's very appropriate, I would say, to get these meetings in place, and it's interesting because I don't really know if we've seen anybody else have this sort of a thing happened to them. Like, sure, it's common, I would say, for coaches to have one-on-ones with players, but I would be under the impression that it's not really a consistent thing. Like, Nils Höglander can go up to Rick Tocchet and say, hey, I've been sucking the past little while. I need to play better. And Tocchet's going to be like, okay, yeah, great, we could do that. And then what? I wouldn't assume that Höglander is meeting with Tocchet every few days. I wouldn't assume that it's a consistent thing. I wouldn't assume anybody on the Vancouver Canucks is having weekly meetings, check-in meetings with Rick Tocchet. And so for Michkov to instead have that with Tortorella and the translator, I think that's one of the more illuminating signs as to how the Philadelphia Flyers are being very careful with this situation and how John Tortorella is on board with that care. He's not treating Matvei Michkov like just any other old player. He's acknowledging, hey, this guy is very talented, and because he is talented, we cannot afford to screw up his development. And screwing up his development doesn't just come with giving him less playing time or putting him with bad line mates, it also comes with giving him bad morale. And being able to keep that morale up by saying, hey, like, this is what we're doing, this is the plan, we scratched you because of this, we're putting you on this line because of this, and the translator is being able to articulate that. Players can get on board with this stuff. I think a lot of prospects nowadays are becoming smarter in terms of really bringing different attitudes to their development. And I think the biggest example of that would be Shane Wright in Seattle. I think for his situation back in 2022, 2023, a lot of people, myself included, were super confused as to why Shane Wright wasn't playing with the Seattle Kraken. Lo and behold, it's because the Kraken had this ultra mastermind plan to make it so that Shane Wright would be able to get sent down to the AHL, and then they sent him to the OHL, and he got traded in the OHL, and he had a really good World Junior stint too. He played for so many teams in so many regular seasons and so many tournaments, but ultimately it paid off because he had that AHL exception. That was the plan. And even though a lot of us, hockey fans in the hockey world, were like, hey, why is this top pick not getting any playing time? What are the Kraken doing? Not once did Shane Wright, or the family of Shane Wright, lash out. In fact, we had articles coming out interviewing Shane Wright's dad, I'm pretty sure, where he was like, yeah, we know the plan, it's good, and we're ready to see it through. But that plan included their son not playing for an extended amount of time. So it was really intriguing for all of us to see that there was no panic, but that the plan was looking all doom and gloom from the outside. Matvei Michkov, it seems like there's a similar thing happening here, where the Flyers are trying to make sure that Michkov knows what's going on, so that he's not confused, so that he's not upset, so that he's not bitter about it. And ultimately, that's great. Going back over to the article here, Michkov has responded well to the Flyers' approach. Despite the occasional frustrations, Michkov's response to being scratched has been seen as a positive. In his return to the lineup against San Jose, he set up Travis Konecny for a power play goal and later scored the game winner in a shootout. On Thursday, he scored the overtime winner. The hope is that continuing to talk to him and coach privately with someone who can understandably relay a message will help. Flyers management is aware of the investment they are making in Michkov, who may require more context and explanation behind certain decisions. If they can keep him engaged and on the same page as his coach, it's only going to mean good things for the team. So with this in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Flyers taking damage control? Precautions here so that Michkov stays happy and aware with how his development is going. Do you think he's been playing well? Do you think he learned from what was being taught to him after getting scratched? And do you think this is just the start of something more for him and his time with the Flyers? I honestly don't know if he's going to win the Calder this year. Celebrini coming back makes things a little bit interesting, and Logan Stankoven has honestly been great too. But when it comes to guys that are having the biggest impacts on their teams, it's hard to debate with Matvei Michkov, man. In fact, you could even say Lane Hudson is in there too. But for now, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about Tortorella's meetings with Michkov, damage control? The articles will be linked in the description if you want to go out there and read more of these yourselves. The Philadelphia Flyers play off against the Sabres today, so we'll see if Michkov and the crew can continue that goodwill in this game later today. There's a lot going on, I would say, with Buffalo and Philadelphia. There were some posts made on the Flyers subreddit earlier this week that talked about some Buffalo guys potentially being trade targets. So maybe we'll go out there and talk about that more as the upcoming days come and go. But either way, thoughts in the comment section about Michkov. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.